My parents used me for rent since I was a teen and demanded even more when I graduated, so I stayed quiet and made one move that shattered their world. I grew up in what I thought was a pretty normal middle-class family in the suburbs. Dad works in insurance and Mom's a part-time real estate agent. They were always weird about money though, like really weird. I remember getting lectured for hours when I was 12 because I asked for new basketball shoes. My old ones literally had holes in them. They'd always talk about how money doesn't grow on trees and how you need to learn the value of a dollar, while somehow always having cash for their own stuff. My older sister moved out when I was 13. She's 7 years older than me. She just disappeared one day while I was at school. My parents told everyone she was going through a phase and was being rebellious. I found out years later she'd been paying them rent too, since she got her first job at 17. I haven't talked to her in years. My parents made sure of that. So back when I was 15, this was like 6 years ago, I was super into digital art and animation. Not like anime stuff, more like those animated logos and intros you see on YouTube gaming channels. I started out just doing it for fun, posting my work on Twitter and DeviantArt. Nothing serious at first, just messing around with After Effects and learning as I went. Then one day, this small gaming YouTuber with 50,000 subscribers DM'd me, asking if I could make him a channel intro. He said he'd pay $20 for it. I almost fell off my chair. Up until then, I'd just been doing this for fun, never thought I could actually make money from it. So I made his intro, and he loved it. He posted about it on his Twitter, tagged me, and suddenly my DMs were blowing up with other YouTubers wanting similar stuff. Within a few months, I had a decent little business going. I was charging between $200 and $500 per animation, depending on how complex they wanted it. By the time I turned 16, I was pulling in between $2,500 and $3,000 a month. For a high school kid, that was insane money. I was smart about it too. I set up a proper PayPal business account, kept track of all my income, and even set aside money for taxes because I'd read online that you're supposed to do that. Here's where things start going sideways. My parents obviously noticed something was up. It's kind of hard to hide when you're getting PayPal transfers that big. Plus, I'd bought myself a new PC and tablet for work. They sat me down one day after school for a family meeting. At first, they acted all proud and supportive. Our son, the entrepreneur, and all that nonsense. Dad was going on about how mature and responsible I was. Then Mom dropped this bomb: since you're making adult money now, we think you should have adult responsibilities. I'm sitting there thinking maybe they want me to pay for my own phone bill or something. Nope. They wanted rent from their 16-year-old kid. Not like a small symbolic amount either. They wanted $800 a month. Their reasoning? That's what you'd pay in the real world. Like what? This is the real world, and most 16-year-olds don't pay their parents' rent at all. Looking back now, I should have seen the red flags, but at the time, I was making good money and thought maybe they were trying to teach me about responsibility or something. Plus, they kept talking about how this would prepare me for the real world and teach me financial management. The worst part? They made this whole show of being fair about it. They sat down with a calculator, showed me how they came up with the $800 figure based on local rent prices and utilities, and even made a little spreadsheet about it, as if that made it normal to charge your kid rent. I remember trying to negotiate, saying maybe we could start lower and work up to that amount. They shut that down real quick. In the real world, you can't negotiate your rent, which is not true, by the way. You totally can. Plus, they hit me with the "you should be grateful we're not charging you market rate" line. Market rate for what? The bedroom I'd been living in since I was 5? But here's the thing. At that point, I was still making way more than most kids my age. Even after paying them $800, I was still clearing like $1,700 to $2,000 a month. So I figured, whatever, I'll play along, maybe they're right, and this will teach me something. Plus, I was kind of proud that I could pay rent, you know? Like, look at me, I'm basically an adult. Man, if I could go back and shake some sense into 16-year-old me. Everything started changing after that. They started treating me like some random tenant when it came to money, but still like a little kid for everything else. The worst of both worlds. The privacy thing was the first major issue. They'd just barge into my room whenever they felt like it. No knocking, no heads up, nothing. This one time, and I'm still pissed about this, I was in the middle of a Zoom call with this client who was paying me $1,200 for a big project. My biggest contract yet. Dad just walks in, doesn't even look at my screen, and starts going through my closet, looking for some tool he'd stored in there. The client's watching this whole thing, super professional, right? I lost that contract because the client thought I was working from my parents' house. I mean, I was, but still. I tried explaining to them that I needed privacy for work, like this wasn't just me playing games or whatever, this was my actual job. Their response? Our house? Our rules? Okay, but I'm paying rent? Doesn't that count for anything? Apparently not. So I started doing my own thing. I bought a mini fridge for my room. They hated that. I started doing my own laundry, cooking my own food, basically trying to minimize how much I had to deal with them. Big mistake. Suddenly, I'm getting all these passive-aggressive comments. Oh, too good for family dinner now? Look who thinks he's better than everyone. Must be nice to eat whenever you want. Like you're the ones who wanted me to be an adult, remember? The rules kept getting more ridiculous too. I had to tell them 24 hours in advance if I was going to use the washing machine. I had to ask permission to have friends over, while paying $800 in rent, by the way. I couldn't use the kitchen during family cooking hours, which they never actually told me when those were. They just yelled at me whenever I was apparently breaking them. But the workspace thing was what really got to me. I had my whole setup in my room, dual monitors, drawing tablet, the works, all paid for with my own money. One day, Mom decides my desk doesn't match the aesthetic of the house. It was literally a black IKEA desk, nothing crazy. She tells me I need to move it to the basement. I was like, hell no. I'm paying rent for this room with my stuff set up this way. She got all teary-eyed and started going on about how I don't care about the family anymore and only think about money. Rich, coming from the people charging their kid $800 a month. But whatever. The breaking point for the whole privacy thing was when they installed one of those doorknob things that lets them open my door from the outside. You know, the kind with a little hole you can poke a wire into. They said it was for emergencies. Yeah, emergencies like making sure I wasn't sleeping in past 7 a.m. on weekends. I bought a rubber doorstop after that and wedged it under my door whenever I was working. They lost their minds about it, said I was making the house unsafe, and what if there was a fire? I don't know, Mom, maybe knock like a normal person. It got to the point where I was basically living like a stranger in my own house, but with fewer rights than an actual tenant. I couldn't have anyone over without permission, couldn't cook when I wanted, couldn't even rearrange my own furniture. But that $800 rent check? They always made sure to collect that on time. So fast forward a bit. I'm 21 now, about to graduate college. Online classes plus working, not that my parents gave a damn about my schedule. My animation business was doing pretty well. I had regular clients, steady income, and even started getting known in the gaming community for my style. Then this huge opportunity comes up. There's this massive digital art and gaming convention in Los Angeles called Digital Fest. Not the real name, changing some details for obvious reasons. One of my biggest clients recommends me for a panel about young artists in the industry. This wasn't just some random convention. We're talking major industry players, potential contracts, networking opportunities, the whole deal. The panel was going to pay for my flight and hotel, plus I had a bunch of meetings lined up with potential clients. This could have been a huge break for my career. I'd been planning it for months, had all my presentations ready, even made new business cards and everything. So I go. I had an amazing time, made some great connections, and even got approached by this big gaming company about doing regular work for them. First time I felt like a real professional, you know? Not just some kid making animations in his bedroom. I came back home after 4 days, tired but happy, and walked into a full-blown storm. My parents are sitting in the living room with these faces like somebody died. Mom's got tissues everywhere, red flag number 1. She only brings out the tissues when she's planning a guilt trip. Dad's got that vein popping in his forehead that usually means he's about to explode. Turns out, they'd planned this massive family reunion the same weekend as the convention. All the aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. Would have been nice to know about it, right? Except they never told me. I'm not exaggerating here. Not a single text, email, conversation, nothing. They swear they told me months ago, but conveniently can't remember when, exactly. Classic gaslighting nonsense. Dad goes off on this rant about family loyalty and how I've changed and only care about money now. Again, rich coming from the people charging their kid rent. Then Mom drops this absolute gem: "You're grounded." I literally laughed. I couldn't help it. I'm 21 years old, running my own business, paying them $800 a month in rent, and they think they can ground me for missing an event they never told me about. Dad didn't like the laughing, got right up in my face, screaming about respect and how I'm not too old to be taught a lesson, whatever that means. Mom's doing her favorite routine, crying while texting the whole family about what a terrible son I am. I just walked out, went to my room, locked the door with my trusty doorstop, and started looking at apartment listings on my phone. They spent the next 2 hours alternating between pounding on my door and guilt-tripping through the walls. Some highlights from their screaming session: "After everything we've done for you." Yeah, like charging me rent since 16. "You're tearing this family apart. By attending a work event, you've changed." Yeah, it's called growing up. What will the family think? Probably that you should have told me about the reunion. But the reunion wasn't even that big of a deal. I found out later from my cousin that it was basically just a regular family dinner. Half the people they claimed were there didn't even show up. They just used it as an excuse to try to assert control. The next morning, I got an email from the gaming company I met at the convention. They want to set up a contract for regular work. Good money too, like really good. I was stoked for about 5 minutes. Then Mom comes shouting with her, "We need to talk about your attitude, voice." And just like that, my good mood evaporated. You know that feeling when you can tell someone's been waiting to start drama? That's exactly what this was. She'd probably been pacing around the house all morning, working herself up for another confrontation. So, after the whole convention drama, things were super tense at home. I was basically trying to avoid my parents as much as possible while also juggling client work and finishing up my last semester. About a week after the convention mess, my mom comes up with this brilliant idea that we need to reconnect as a family. Anyone whose parents have tried to reconnect knows exactly where this is going. She decides we're going to have a nice family dinner, just the three of us. Says we need to talk things through like adults, right? I knew it was going to be a show from the moment I walked into the dining room. Mom had gone full theater mode. She only breaks those out when she's planning something big. Dad's sitting there with that look on his face. You know, the one like he's physically holding back from starting until the right moment. Dinner starts, and Mom's playing nice, asking about school, work, the usual small talk, acting like everything's totally normal, like she didn't try to ground her adult son a week ago. I'm just pushing food around my plate, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then Dad clears his throat. That's when I knew the real show was about to start. "Son, your mother and I have been talking. Never in the history of parenting has that sentence led to anything good. We're worried about the direction your life is taking. The direction my life is taking. I'm about to graduate college, running a successful business, making more money than most of my friends combined, but sure, let's hear it." He starts going off about respect and family values and how I've changed, says I'm acting above the family now. Mom's nodding along, doing that thing where she dabs at her eyes with a napkin, even though she's not crying. Then they hit me with it. They want to raise my rent. Not because of inflation, not because of higher utilities, but because, and I quote, "You're spending enough time with the family." Let that sink in. They wanted to charge me more money because I wasn't hanging out with them enough. The current $800 wasn't enough of a punishment, apparently. They wanted to bump it up to $1,200 a month. I must have laughed because Dad's face went purple. "You think this is funny? You live under our roof, you follow our rules. If you don't like it, you can leave." That's when I lost it. I told them they'd been bleeding me dry since I was 16, treating me like a tenant when it came to everything else. I said they couldn't have it both ways. Either I'm a tenant with tenant rights or I'm their kid, but this weird in-between wasn't working anymore. Mom starts full-on crying now, real tears this time. She's good at switching those on when she needs to, going on about how she doesn't recognize me anymore, how I've become cold and distant. Meanwhile, Dad's getting louder and louder, spitting out about how ungrateful I am, how they've given me everything. I just sat there, watching this whole circus play out, and something finally clicked. This wasn't about family time. It was never about teaching me responsibility or preparing me for the real world. It was about control, pure and simple. The more successful I got, the more they tried to clip my wings. The convention thing? They hated that I was building a life they couldn't control. The rent? Just another way to keep me dependent on them. I stood up, real calm, and told them I'd think about it. So I was sitting in my room having a full-blown anxiety attack. I knew I needed to get out of there, but the idea of actually doing it was terrifying. Then I remembered Uncle Mike. Quick background on Uncle Mike. He's my mom's younger brother, and he's basically the family black sheep. They don't talk about him much, except to whisper about how he abandoned the family to chase his dreams or whatever. Turns out those dreams were starting his own tech company and getting the hell away from their toxic nonsense. Who would have thought? I hadn't talked to him much growing up, Mom's doing, obviously, but we connected on LinkedIn a few months back. He'd seen some of my work and messaged me, saying he was proud of what I was building. That meant a lot, especially since my own parents only saw my business as a way to squeeze more money out of me. So, yeah, I called him. It was like 11 p.m., but he picked up right away. I spilled everything. The rent since 16, the convention drama, the latest attempt to raise my rent, all of it. He was quiet for a long time, then just said, "What the actual?" It was so validating to hear someone else say it, like finally someone else seeing how messed up this whole situation was. He told me about how my mom and their parents had pulled similar nonsense with him when he was younger, said that's why he cut contact and moved away. Then he says something that changed everything, kid. You need to get out of there yesterday. I started giving all the usual excuses. I didn't have enough saved up. Lie. I had a decent amount but was scared to use it. I didn't know how to find a place. Another lie. I'd been browsing apartments for months. I didn't want to damage family relationships. Biggest lie of all. What relationships? Uncle Mike wasn't having any of it. They're charging their teenage kid rent and trying to control his life. The relationship is already damaged and it's not your fault. Then he offered me his spare room. Just like that. No rent, no conditions. Just come stay with me until you get your feet under you. He's got this sweet apartment in the city about 45 minutes away. Close enough to keep my local clients, far enough to get away from my parents' nonsense. I tried to argue that I should pay him something. Force of habit, I guess. He shut that down real quick. Your family, and this is what actual family does. They help each other without trying to profit from it. We talked for like 2 hours. He helped me make a plan, said I could move in whenever I was ready, no pressure. But he also warned me that once my parents realized I was serious about leaving, things would probably get ugly. Man, was he right about that. The next morning, I started quietly looking into what I needed to do to move. Figured I'd take a couple of weeks to get everything sorted. Make it a clean break. The universe had other plans, though. Remember that gaming company from the convention? They emailed me again with a contract offer, really good money. But they needed someone who could do regular in-person meetings. Their office was 10 minutes from Uncle Mike's place. It felt like a sign, like everything was lining up to tell me it's time to go. I was actually feeling pretty good about everything. Had a solid plan, a place to go, even a new job opportunity. Then my mom knocks on my door. Now, you already know she never knocks. Just barges in whenever she wants, so right away I knew something was up. She comes in with that face, the one where they're trying to look sad but you can see they're actually pissed, sits down on my bed without asking, of course, and starts with the classic, "We need to talk about your future." I'm already thinking, here we go. But I had no idea what was coming. She starts going off about how I've been distant and not contributing enough to the family lately. I'm sitting there thinking, not contributing? I've been paying you $800 a month since I was 16, but I keep my mouth shut. Just let her go on. Then she drops this bomb. They want to raise my rent to $1,500 a month. $1,500 because, get this, you're about to graduate and will have a real job soon. Apparently my business doesn't count as a real job in their eyes. But wait, it gets better. She says they've been tracking my income, how, and know I've been making more lately. Says it's only fair that they get a bigger cut, like I'm some kind of investment property that's supposed to pay dividends or something. I must have looked shocked, because she goes, "Oh, don't act surprised. We've been monitoring your business for your own good. Someone has to make sure you're being responsible." That's when something in my brain just snapped. All these years of control, manipulation, guilt trips, it all came crashing down at once. I stood up and just said, "No, she did this weird head tilt thing, like a dog hearing a strange noise. What do you mean, no? I mean, no. I'm not paying you more rent. Actually, I'm not paying you any more rent at all. I'm moving out. Guys, the audible gasp. You'd think I just announced I was running off to join a cult. She actually laughs, like I'm joking. Oh, please, where would you even go? You can't afford to move out. Dad hears the commotion and comes charging in, gets right in my face, jabbing his finger at my chest, going on about how I owe them and I'm not going anywhere. Then Mom hits me with the ultimate narcissist's prayer, if you leave, you're dead to us. I just looked at her and said, guess I'm dead then. Dad completely lost it, started throwing stuff around my room saying he'd make sure I couldn't leave. Mom's doing her crying routine, texting family members about her ungrateful son right there in front of me. I grabbed my laptop, because that's my literal livelihood, and just walked out. Drove around for a few hours, trying to clear my head, called Uncle Mike, and told him what happened. He said, come over now, we'll figure the rest out later. I had to sneak back into the house at like 3 a.m. to get some clothes and important documents. Found out they'd changed the Wi-Fi password. Oh no, how will I ever survive without your internet that I've been paying for? They'd taken the doorknob off my door, totally normal behavior, and were sitting up in the kitchen keeping watch like I was some kind of criminal. I managed to grab my passport, birth certificate, and a bag of clothes. I left my PC set up for now, figured I'd come back for it when things calmed down. That was a mistake, but we'll get to that. The last thing I heard as I was leaving was Mom screaming, don't expect us to take you back when you fail. Joke's on them, I wasn't planning on coming back, but I had no idea what they'd already done to make sure I'd need them. So, there I was at Uncle Mike's place at 4 a.m., with nothing but a duffel bag of clothes and my important documents. He didn't even blink, just made coffee and helped me figure out what to do next. Man's a freaking saint, I swear. The next morning was wild. I woke up to 47 missed calls and about 200 texts. Some from my parents, but mostly from random family members they'd called to guilt trip me. Apparently, I'm killing my mother and breaking up the family. Uncle Mike let me use his spare laptop for work. Remember, my PC was still at their house. We figured we'd go get my stuff once things calmed down. That was the plan anyway. Around noon, I got this weird email from one of my clients asking why I canceled their project. I didn't. I logged into my work email, and holy, someone had gone through and canceled every single project I had lined up, including the contract with the gaming company. Guess who had access to my PC? I called the gaming company immediately to explain, but the damage was already done. They'd already hired someone else. Other clients were pissed too. It took me weeks to rebuild those relationships. So, Uncle Mike suggested I check my bank accounts, make sure everything was secure. That's when I noticed something weird. There were these recurring payments I didn't recognize, going back years. So, I did what I should have done a long time ago. I checked my credit score. There were 3 credit cards in my name, each maxed out, plus a personal loan for $25,000. Total debt, over $45,000. The earliest card was opened right after I turned 18. I felt like I was going to throw up. All those years of paying rent, thinking I was being responsible, and they were using my identity to rack up debt. Suddenly, all those random emergencies they needed rent money early for made sense. Uncle Mike took one look at the credit report and said, "We're calling the police now." We filed a police report right there in Uncle Mike's living room. The cop who took the statement said this happens way more often than people think. It's called familial fraud, mostly parents doing it to their kids. While we're at the police station, my mom texts me, "Hope you're happy with yourself. Your father had to go to the hospital because of the stress you caused." I didn't even reply, just blocked their numbers right there. Uncle Mike's lawyer friend, who specializes in identity theft, says not to have any contact with them now that we're pressing charges. And yeah, we're pressing charges. Uncle Mike's friend says we have a solid case. We can prove they opened the accounts, prove they were making minimum payments using my rent money, everything. That's when I realized that all those years they guilt-tripped me about not going away to college, talking about how they just wanted me to have the full experience, and how I chose to do online classes instead. Yeah, turns out they needed me at home paying rent just so they could keep up with the minimum payments on their mess. The whole thing was a setup from the start. The rent, the guilt trips about spending time with family, not wanting me to go to the convention. All of it was to keep me close so they could keep using my identity and money to pay their debts. I'm currently staying at Uncle Mike's while this all gets sorted out. I had to get a police escort to get my PC and other stuff from their house. Half my equipment was mysteriously broken, but honestly, small price to pay for getting out. I still can't believe how long I bought into their nonsense. The detective handling my case says it's pretty much open and shut. They found evidence of my parents opening credit cards in my name, going all the way back to when I turned 18. They even found paperwork in their house where they'd been practicing my signature. Who does that to their own kid? The total damage ended up being worse than we thought. The final tally was close to $65,000 when you count all the hidden accounts we found. They had even taken out a car loan in my name for a car I didn't even know existed. Real nice, right? Uncle Mike's lawyer friend has been a freaking lifesaver. Turns out, there's a whole process for this kind of identity theft. We're working with the credit bureaus to get everything removed from my credit report. It's a pain in the ass, but it's working. My credit score is slowly climbing back up, and we actually found out where all my rent money actually went. Remember how they charged me $800 a month since I was 16? They were using it to make minimum payments on their own maxed-out credit cards, not just the ones in my name. They've basically been running a Ponzi scheme with my identity. Then, last week, my mom tried pulling the ultimate manipulation move. She called me from an unknown number. I'd blocked theirs. I picked up, thinking it might be about the case and the performance this woman put on. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her at first, going on about how she was so sorry and how she never meant to hurt me, and they only did it because they were desperate. She said they'd pay everything back if I dropped the charges, that they'd make it right. Then she hit me with the classic, "We're still your parents. We love you. Family has to stick together through hard times." You know what finally made me snap? She said, "We can go back to how things were before." Before what, Mom? Before I found out about the identity theft? Before you got caught? Because that's the only thing you're actually sorry about, getting caught. I told her that exact thing and hung up. She tried calling back from like 6 different numbers. Uncle Mike helped me change my number the next day. The family's completely split over this. Most of the aunts and uncles are taking my parents' side, saying stuff like, "Family doesn't send family to jail, and you owe them for raising you." Uncle Mike shut that down real quick, though. He told them all to either support me or get lost. Most of them chose to get lost. I got a message from my cousin, one of the few family members still talking to me, that my parents have been telling everyone I'm mentally unstable and making up lies for attention. They're saying I stole from them, and they're the real victims. Classic narcissist playbook. But the good news is, my business is back on track, actually doing better than ever. That gaming company that originally canceled on me? They heard what happened through industry connections and reached out again. I signed an even better contract with them last week. Uncle Mike's been amazing through all of this. Refuses to let me pay rent. Took some getting used to be honest. He helped me set up new bank accounts at a different bank. Even co-signed on a small apartment I'm moving into next month. He says he's proud of me for standing up to them. Still feels weird to hear that from family. I also got a letter from my mom's church group last week, saying they're praying for my redemption. Apparently my parents told them I'm a drug addict who stole their retirement fund. Would be funny if it wasn't so pathetic. The criminal case is moving forward. Their first court date is next month. My parents' lawyer reached out about a family reconciliation, but Uncle Mike's lawyer told them to get bent. No contact means no contact. I still have moments where I feel guilty, like maybe I should have handled it differently. Then I remember they started financially abusing me when I was 16 and kept it up for 5 years. They were never going to stop on their own. The weirdest part? For the first time in my life, I actually feel free. No more guilt trips, no more wondering why my bank account never seemed to grow despite making good money. Just peace. So, yeah, that's where things stand. My parents are facing serious charges. I'm rebuilding my credit and my life, and slowly learning what actual family support looks like, thanks to Uncle Mike. My parents are facing charges for $65,000 of identity theft. Most of the family disowned me, but I'm finally free and doing better than ever.